Hey guys, so I know we kind of teed you up our last episode when we were talking about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, that we were going to be playing it if you're local to New Mexico at the Jean Cocteau Cinema here in Santa Fe. We actually have tickets on sale now, so we're playing the 1974, don't worry, not the 2003 Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
We wouldn't do that to you.
July 12th through 14th. So tickets are on sale now at JeanCocteauCinema.com. Also, if you want to see we're trying to play at least one horror film that we're going to pair with the podcast a month.
A splice pairing, if you will.
A splice pairing. So if you want to keep up to date with us, you can go to JeanCocteauCinema.com and sign up for our newsletter, which goes out a couple times a month, if not weekly. And then on social media at Jean Cocteau Cinema. And we're excited to see all of our horror friends at Texas Chainsaw
Cook up
in
some
July.
Good barbecue for y'all.
Yeah, so July 12th through 14th, come say hi.
You know, we've always been in meats.
All right.
We'll be right back. Oh no. Are we going?
We're rocking and rolling.
We're rolling. Okay, that's why you were saying that.
And speed,
Hello.
Siena.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I am a speed, but not camera speed.
Oh, yeah.
I'm so excited.
I was going to say, this is Siena's,
Oh, wait. Welcome back to Splice and Splatter. I'm Siena.
I'm Al.
This is the film podcast presented by the Jean Cocteau Cinema in Santa Fe, New Mexico, a classic horror.
It's modern gore.
And you were saying, Al.
Yes. I love, because we always forget to do that.
We always forget to do that. And also,
you.
just to give you guys a preface, we're on a recording deadline today.
Yeah,
so
Al, me, your host.
Me, Al.
Double booked. Because we're doing Wednesday recordings now.
We've switched our schedule, and any change is difficult for humans.
So yeah. We're doing Wednesdays at 9 versus Tuesdays at 10. And I was like, I'm free all of Wednesday. Nope. So I'm going to be darting and dashing. But luckily for us, this is Siena. So this is Siena's birthday episode because your birthday is
June 29th.
So I was going to say.
This is coming out on the Monday before my birthday, which is Saturday.
Yeah.
So by the time many of you listen to this, I will be 27 and no longer allowed to carry white lighters. Yeah.
Wait, white lighters?
Have you not heard about that? It's a whole 27 club. A lot of the people in the 27 club died carrying white lighters. It's a whole. So you're not supposed to when you're 27.
Keep those away from Siena. Don't send.
Don't tempt me, man.
But yeah, we're doing 2 Argento films because of it. So Siena picks.
Because all Argento all the time.
Yeah.
And it's Al's first time watching Argento, which I'm so fucking excited for. I was trying so hard to restrain myself from just sending you Suspiria gif after gif last
To be fair,
night.
I've seen I feel like I've seen so many pieces of it. I actually had this moment in the opening of Suspiria that I was like, have I seen this before? But I bet in film class we watched a piece of it.
I bet you they showed a little trailer or something. Yeah.
Which,
I had a bit of a hard time finding Suspiria last night. I don't know if you had this too.
It was on Zumo or
Yes,
whatever.
that's what I watched as well.
Yeah. They have, if anyone's looking for Argento, Zumo.
Yeah, it's free.
With ads.
I got a whole bunch of ads
sponsored.
for radon kits, which I was like, they've been listening to me.
Oh, I didn't get those.
Oh, cool. We'll hate that.
I got what did I get? Baby Bottle Pop are still doing commercials. They're not as cool as they used to be.
So funny.
So that's what I got. Again, very different people.
They know us. They're
you.
listening. Yeah. But yeah, so it's all Argento all the time. This actually worked out really well because our sponsor this episode apparently suggested Suspiria to you.
Yeah.
And I wrote him late last night and was like, James, I have to ask, why did you suggest Suspiria?
Did you say why?
He did. He said it was mainly aesthetics based, but I was like, because I asked him this after I'd already done my film theory rant corner, I have a lot of thoughts about the connections between tintypes, which is what James does, and Suspiria.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, we'll dive into that.
Great. I was gonna say I'm also I go second, but I'm gonna preface this by Al. Why am I talking to the third person? That's so icky. I tried my best, and we all know this is a Siena-based episode. One day in September, when my birthday, we'll have an Al-based episode.
I'm already thinking of things.
Yeah. So I tried. Siena's probably gonna know every single thing I've wrote down.
I actually don't know a whole lot about the making of Suspiria.
We got
So
some things. We got some fun little things in there. So
I
some things
imagine
I found very cool.
cool. I imagine both of ours. I at least found that there was less, I think, as is often the case with foreign films, there was less behind the scenes info and more film theory rant corner and like notes from watching the film,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
is like,
Oh my
there's-
god, my notes are for watching Deep Red are
I
so stupid.
can't wait. Okay, let's start there.
Watch.
I know that
Watching, watch experience.
well, and particularly why I suggested we split them the way we do, because I feel like just aesthetics wise,
Oh,
I feel like Suspiria is
Yeah.
more up my alley and Deep Red is like maybe a little bit more Al, in the sense that it's like got a lot of gore and like scary dolls and shit. But
yeah, I liked the dolls.
I thought you might like the dolls. But I was like, I have watched Deep Red now like maybe 4 times, and I
Oh.
still can't really tell you what the plot is. So
fucking god, I was like not in it. I was like, I had to look up literally
Yeah.
an hour in.
Mhm.
I looked up the description of
Yeah.
the film to be like, what is this about?
This
I'm
was
so glad. Whew, guys, we're doing great. We're doing great.
So I was like, if I'm already like forcing you to watch one of my favorite directors and like dive into the fucking Argento deep end, I'm not going to subject you to doing that.
Truly, thank you. I would have been like, shit.
Yeah. I was like, that would be
watching
cruel.
Thanks for having mercy on me. Yeah, no, I'm glad because I knew of Suspiria.
Yeah.
Which I'm gonna preface.
Yes.
For the longest time.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so excited.
I thought it was called Suspiria. So if I say that or struggle saying Suspiria at any point,
Oh, I love
it's because I'm dumb.
I'm so into
Once an
that.
episode, I said something real stupid. At least once. So yeah, if you see me going Suspiria, it's
Perfect.
because I'm fighting.
Al's
the
not
brain.
drunk.
Yeah,
Al's just-
just trying to fight the demons.
Love it, as we all are
but
at most times.
Yeah, very Santa pics.
Yeah. Well, I'm like, they're both so Freudian. There's like,
Yeah,
there's a
there's a lot going on.
There's
They're
a lot
very
going on.
Filmy.
They're very filmy.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. So watch experience.
Oh my
You're an
gosh.
Argento virgin. Lead me in.
I don't have my phone on me. Trevis coming in. Watch experience. So again, first hour had no idea what was going on. I thought I had like some
You
the
think you know,
poster-
and then you don't.
the poster would like lead you to believe
That it's a scary doll movie.
yeah, this is a scary
Yeah.
doll movie. Oh, look at the hand coming in, hand model.
Ooh.
Yeah, so it would lead you
Spooky.
one way.
Mhm.
And then I was like, I don't get. So then I had to take a break because I had to go into work. So I split the movie. I had a
Oh
big
my God, I
intermission.
love-
I had like a
Honestly,
4-hour intermission.
I don't think that's a bad way to watch Deep Red necessarily, because like it's so intense and there's
Yeah.
so much plot going
Yeah.
on. Again, I've watched it like 3 or 4 times. This was my first rewatch where I remembered who the killer is. Every other time has been like brand new.
Oh, funny.
So
That's so fun. Yeah, it was kind of fun. So when I came back to it, I'm not gonna lie, I was like really dreading it. I've been on the Fast and the Furious kick. I've never watched them before, and I went to Ren Fair last weekend, and it was on in the hotel,
Oh
and I
my
was like, "Why are these
God.
like horribly bad?" So I was like dying to get to Fast and Furious 9,
which is
last
like
night.
the exact opposite energy from Deep Red.
Oh, it's
like
so-
could not be more
like
different.
no. So I was like dreading. I was like, "Okay, I'll make dinner, and
You
I'll like
poor
get
thing.
to it."
So
But then I read the plot.
Uh-huh. Did you read the whole plot? Did you spoil it for yourself?
I didn't spoil it for myself.
Ooh,
I
good
just read the
self-control.
description,
Mhm.
and I was kind of like, this kind of fucks. It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
I kind of put it in the category of, along with like the music, jazzy music.
Mhm.
I was like, it kind of reminds me, not plot based, but I would put it in the category of like The Exorcist and stuff like that. Like I feel
Yes.
like it is this kind of like fun 70s like murder mystery kind of thing. And so I got on board by the end, and I did like it by the end. But I gotta say, hate it at the beginning.
I can completely.
But it's because I just
understand.
I don't think I was like mentally in the right mindset to do.
I mean, this is also a big part of what my film theory rant corner is about, is the idea that like even people who love Argento, like one of the first things
Mm.
that you'll hear people say is he is an acquired taste.
Yes.
And we're going to talk about why.
I was gonna say
Yeah.
I read a lot on that too especially when I was looking up like critics reviews stuff. Like
Mhm.
he's very much like his own.
He's his
thing.
own special guy.
And these movies, like if you like Suspiria, this is just so different. And it's so
Yes.
crazy that they were
The
like
same
2 years
Yeah.
apart.
Yeah.
Which I
Yeah.
kind of love in a filmmaker that they're like, oh, they're just making the things they want to make. And I
Especially
appreciate that.
because they're both horror, but they're
Mhm.
horror in such different ways.
Such different
And we're going
ways.
to talk about that too.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Again, this is going to be mainly, I'm just going to have some notes. I'm
I
going to
love
have some
it.
tits and some bids for this, and it's going to
Did
be
you
a
just say some
Siena.
tits and some bits?
Did I really?
Yes, I think
Happy
you did.
Pride.
It really is my birthday episode.
Why? I said like Les last week.
Tits and
Les are
bits, I
phase, and
love
now
it.
tits and bids.
Okay, again,
The
merch idea.
The Freudian
The Freudian
slips.
slips.
God, how
The Freudian
10 minutes in?
tits. Yeah,
Is this a
good.
record? But yeah, and then I have watch notes, which really consist of me just writing really bonkers one-liners.
I kind of want to hear your watch notes first. I feel like that's like because
They're
again,
very fast.
yeah,
We'll
let's
speed
do
run,
that. Yeah,
hopefully. I said we know we're onto something when the hi-hat comes out.
yeah.
So it starts to get jazzy.
Yes. Oh yeah,
Um,
quick intermission to say we're finally getting to Goblin music.
I know.
I've joked about Goblin music like 5 times on
Yeah.
the podcast now, and we're
We're
finally here.
We're like
baby.
actually in it,
Yeah.
not just the very first episode we did, where it's like our favorites.
Yeah.
Loved, by the way. I
Mhm.
said go off. Yesified Timothee Chalamet. You know who I'm talking about, right?
Oh, of course.
yeah.
Carlo?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Walking through, beautiful
Mhm.
man.
Oh. No, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah,
and I
walking
have the
through.
best tidbit
Oh,
about that
Yeah,
character.
because I love
Yeah.
him.
Yeah.
That's Timothée.
Mm-hmm.
I said, why is the killer's waterline so thick? It unnerves me.
That's
Don't
why.
like it.
That's why I had to do the
Don't
big
like.
black eyeliner today. It was an Argento tribute.
Hmm.
It's
Don't like it.
very unnerving, isn't it?
Yeah, don't like it. Not a fan. Eye stuff.
Mhm.
Piano
Love eye
man,
horror.
pianist, sorry. Looks like evil James Spader. I thought.
He does,
Right?
doesn't he?
He looks like an Italian James
That's
Spader.
so funny. Yeah, it's probably, yeah, that tracks.
Poor girl when homegirl gets burned, I thought she looked like the hey you guys. And I couldn't get over that. I was like, is it bad that the killer is it bad I like that the killer has little toys? I feel like we would get along.
I thought
And
you
I feel
would
like
that.
yeah. I like those slow shots.
Yeah, well, all of those like close-ups on just like we never understand where they're coming from. The camera will just cut to like
No.
almost like a commercial of
Part of
like a
me feels
black
like-
space.
Like, are they like filming it and like I don't know. I feel like they're making their own little film.
It feels like it's a shot from the killer's perspective.
It does.
for sure.
Yeah. Like look at all my
yeah,
toys.
look at my toys.
Oh, the doll that comes out
yeah,
literally screamed.
good. I
Literally
love that.
screamed throughout the whole
love
thing till
that.
the head was broke.
That
I was
makes
just like,
me so
"Ah!"
happy.
Yeah. So jump scare, guys,
Oh.
in that one.
Well, just to give you a little tidbit off the top right there, that is one of the main sources that James Wan has cited for the doll in Saw.
Oh,
Yeah, it
ew.
was the deep red doll.
Oh, funny.
Yeah.
James Wan.
Yeah, thought you'd like that.
Did he do the remake of Suspiria? Who did that one? No.
Luca
Okay.
Guadagnino.
Oh. I haven't
Call
seen it, guys.
Call me by your name, dude.
Oh,
yeah. Which
very
is-
cool.
That's part of why it's good in a completely different way.
Yeah.
It's like a much gayer Suspiria,
Mm.
which we love, but
Which Suspiria's pretty gay. And
Suspiria's
then
already
my
pretty
last my last watch notes was calling the killer Edward Zipper Hands, and that was it. That's
Oh
all I gotta say.
my
So my notes aren't really like. So maybe that will sell someone on watching this if they don't feel like it. Those are my watch
Edward
notes.
Zipperhands. Okay, well, while we're talking about Edward Zipperhands,
Yeah.
another tidbit, you can tell how much I love this film by the fact that like I don't even need my notes for this. This is
Oh, I
all
hate
just
you.
like from memory.
I hate it.
Edward
So I'm
Zip-
kicking you off.
Yeah, this actually wasn't supposed to be my tid off the top, but you
Your
queued me
tid
right
off
up
the
for
top.
it. Yeah, my tid
Yeah.
off the top. But you queued me right up for it. So the hands, the
Yeah.
killer's hands, are
Yeah.
actually Dario Argento. He performed it himself
Oh.
because he decided that what he wanted for the hand performance, since we've talked about
Yeah.
hand acting so much,
Yeah.
was so specific that he was like, I couldn't possibly get an actor to do it correctly,
I'm
so I
gonna
have
be
to do it
honest.
myself.
Those little things look like they were just
Yeah.
a glove on a stick.
It doesn't.
There's not
it's
much
not
acting
very
happening.
complicated. Yeah.
Those gloves looked thick.
It tells you a lot about Argento's personality that he was like nobody else could do this
Yeah,
but
yeah,
me.
but me.
Yeah.
I mean, good for him. He got his
Good for
little
him.
like Hitchcock cameo.
The hands worked, so
Yeah.
he's Edward Zipperhands. My actual tid off the top, just because it connects to one of our previous episodes where I
Ooh.
like shoved in an Argento reference, as I'm gonna keep on
Yeah.
doing. So remember, we talked about Argento during the Dawn of the Dead episode, or during the Dawn of the Dead conversation, because Claudio Argento was one of the producers of that. Claudio is Dario Argento's brother, also produced both of these films. Dario Argento,
a fam thing, because
he's a nepo baby.
Stefano?
Salvatore.
Salvatore, sorry.
Salvatore.
Stefano.
So, quick Argento family tree. We
Yeah.
have.
I would love this, because
Yes.
I didn't do a dive on that.
Oh, this is.
I'm just gonna hand my notes over to Siena when it's my turn.
This is part of why I am so obsessed with Argento. Is like I love a behind the scenes story, and I especially love a behind the scenes story about like complex romantic artist families, you know?
Yes. I've learned, some of it.
Oh, yes. Well, I'm sure some of you may recognize the Argento name not from Dario, but from Asia Argento, who is famous/infamous for being Anthony Bourdain's partner at the time of his death. Yes. Which you also probably, whether you remember it or not, saw Dario Argento in the episode where Anthony Bourdain, in the Parts Unknown episode where he goes to Rome, because that's where he and Asia met, and she takes him to like the Argento family home, and they like have dinner with Dario. So, family tree, we have Salvatore Argento, who's the grandfather, patriarch of the family clan, film producer. Then we have Dario and Claudio, who are the brothers. Dario Argento meets on the set of Deep Red and marries Daria Nicolodi, who co-wrote Suspiria and is the star of Deep Red. Dario and Daria.
I know. I realized I have to call her Daria, and then I have to say Argento for...
Yes, that's what I do too.
Yeah. So I was like, shit.
So Dario and Daria meet on this set, get married, and they have Asia Argento. Asia then goes on to work with both her mother and father on the third film in the trilogy that starts with Suspiria. And that one is directed by, I believe it's directed by Dario, or maybe it's directed by Asia. And I think Asia stars in it, and Daria Nicolodi, I think, was one of the co-writers. So, and Dario and Daria are separated now, but obviously, like, still have this like complex working dynamic where they work.
I was gonna say, making films like this, with that
Yes.
backstory,
Yeah.
that's messy. That's not clean.
You're not going to escape from the clutches of that. So, and obviously then there's like all of these later echoes with what happens between Asia and Anthony Bourdain, which I have a lot of feelings about that I'm going to try not to get into, but I also think it's like hard not to talk about it, because like now there's a lot of people who just know Asia Argento as like the person who led Anthony Bourdain to kill himself, which... No, that's not how that works. That's not how that works.
Instead of the daughter of.
And also she's a film director. She is an extremely problematic fave of mine, but she's like a fascinating person. And if you like Dario Argento, it's worth checking out some of Asia's films, because he's produced a lot of them, and you can totally... She's very much his daughter.
There's so many cool like child like nepo, like horror child nepo babies,
right?
Like Long Legs. We got like Perkins, Anthony Perkins kid.
There's
Cronenberg.
I was just gonna say
two
Cronenbergs. Yeah,
two Cronen babies.
Two Cronen babies.
I'm like loving it.
Yeah,
that's the kind of nepo baby that I'm for. If they're like taking this legacy on and killing it,
especially because all of them, it's like director daddies who made like really creepy horror films about families, and then their children carrying that on. I'm like, oh, it just gets richer with each generation. So that's just like a little preface for all of y'all who maybe recognize the Argento family name, but there's your family tree. I'm obsessed with his relationship with Daria Nicolodi. I think they're like such a fascinating working dynamic. And I also think her writing is a big part of why I love Suspiria so much. And I think that's part of why they're so different too, is like you can tell that there's like a female perspective in the writing of Suspiria. Which there is not in Deep Red. But anyway, all of that was a tangent from my tidbit about George Romero. Sorry, guys. So George Romero was actually there was a plan concocted by Dario Argento's son, so Asia's brother, in 2010 to have George Romero do a remake of Deep Red,
Oh, whoa.
which George was like, that sounds cool. Dario's down, right?
Yeah.
And the son was like, yeah, totally. That's totally down for this. And
Oh,
George
no.
Romero was like, that sounded a little weird. Let me just
Yeah.
call my old buddy and check. So he
Yeah.
calls up Dario Argento and he's like, so are we doing this remake of Deep Red or what? Sounds pretty interesting. And Dario's like, we're remaking what now? And
Oh, no.
George is like, oh no. And I found the actual quote from him was, from there on, I told him, well, that's it, man. I'm out. So-
Oh, geez.
yeah. So no Deep Red remake, which like, I
Uh,
love George Romero having that respect though. He's like, it's my
Yeah.
buddy. I'm
Yeah,
not gonna
yeah.
remake
Well,
his film
yeah.
without his his
God,
blessing.
could you imagine? That would be cool.
It would be really cool. And like if there's anybody that I would trust to do a Deep Red remake, it would be George Romero.
When was
This
that?
gonna happen?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
2010. So like
Oh,
at the very
damn.
end of his career, which is like super.
Oh, that would have
yeah,
been so cool.
it would have been
And
fascinating.
if anyone, yeah, like friends, a
Yeah.
friend of yours.
Yeah, exactly. So also just quick little personal shout out here to my old teacher Rob King at Columbia, who his cult and exploitation cinema class, which
I'm glad
is
you got a book. I didn't see
where
you
I
bringing a
have this
book.
from, and I snuck it
You
in there
snuck
for you,
that
Al.
in.
And I've brought this collection in before. I'm reading a different
Yeah,
essay
yeah,
from
yeah.
it, but yeah, the Cult Film Reader. This was one of my textbooks from his class. Rob King's Cult and Exploitation Cinema class is like the reason that I know of like 60% of the movies that I love.
Oh, that makes sense.
So just love Rob. He's written a lot of really cool film books. Check out Rob King.
Mm.
Anyway, so this film, directed by Dario Argento, co-written by Argento and Bernardino Zapponi.
These names are gonna kill me today.
We're not, Italian names I can't.
Although
do.
you can, if you throw a flair to it, you can kind of
If you-
stumble
if
through.
you use
got a
hands,
hand. I know,
yeah.
why do we do that? God, fucking Americans.
We're the worst. So Zapponi was also a collaborator with Fellini. So
Oh.
art house fans,
Yeah.
his name might sound familiar. And instead of a plot description for this one, because it's so complicated, I just did, here are the actors, here's the character they play, and here's like a little like kind of preface to the character. Because I feel like it's such a part of what makes this movie so complicated is that there's so many people. There's so many characters.
Yeah, I would just say like ghost murder mystery.
Yeah.
Is like the best way to explain
Ghost
it.
murder mystery, haunted house, child Christmas stabbing.
Yeah.
doll.
A hang in there. It's a hang in there film. Hang
Yes.
in there. Get through the first half.
Yeah, there's like 7 bajillion twists.
But it's cool.
Yeah, it's also like a detective mystery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It does have there's payoff, which is nice.
There's things.
Yeah,
there
are
are things. So we have David Hemmings as Marcus Daly, who's an English jazz pianist who witnesses the hatchet murder of a psychic through his
engineer.
window. Yes, an engineer. If you recognize Hemmings from anything, it's probably from Antonioni's film Blow Up, which is also a movie about an artist witnessing a crime. So there's some like interesting Deep Red echoes. That one came out in 1966. He also, little fun fact, did play Sharon Tate's brother in a 1966 film called The Eye of the Devil. So again, we never escape. We can't escape Rosemary's Baby. Daria Nicolodi as Gianna Brezzi, the reporter who accidentally reveals that Marcus is the only eyewitness and therefore puts him directly in the killer's path. The film that the 3 Argentos, mom, dad, and daughter, worked on is 2007's Mother of Tears.
Oh, yeah.
So check that out. I actually haven't seen it yet. It did not get great reviews. But I also feel like just for the Argento lore,
just
I'm
to
sure it's an
see.
interesting watch. Then we have Gabriel Lavia as Carla Manganiello, who's Marcus's alcoholic friend with serious mommy issues. And what at first seems to be like a little bit of a Norman Bates thing going on. Only to flip that on its head.
Yeah.
We have Macha Meril as the murdered psychic Helga Ullman, who she's been in like a ton of art house films. She was in Godard's Married Woman. She was in Belle de Jour, which is a Buñuel film I love. She was in some Fassbinder movies. Also, Macha is her stage name because she's an actual Russian princess.
Whoa.
So that's weird.
Whoa.
Yeah. Psychic / actual Russian princess.
Damn.
Then we have Clara Calamai as Martha Manganiello, Carlo's very normal, very cool, chill mom. And she collaborated a lot with Visconti, so another art house connection there that you might recognize. Also a weird little mini tidbit. Daria Nicolodi isn't the only one of Argento's partners to appear in the film. He also uses a photo of his own most recent ex at the time as Marcus's ex. Oh, thank you.
Our cords were both tucked. Sorry,
like,
if you're watching, our cords were tucked.
I was like, is Al checking out my legs?
I just did it to mine. Yeah, I was just gently caress your leg in the middle of that. Exes, you say? Can you imagine? HR.
It's really my birthday episode now.
It's your presence, yeah. Part 2. Me just creeping you out publicly. Oh my god.
On camera.
Sorry.
Oh my god. Okay. Title stuff. Originally this was going to be called The Saber-Toothed Tiger, which was like
that's atrocious.
Isn't that awful?
Why? No reason.
Great question. Argento at the time was really into like animal-based names. He had done Four Flies on Grey Velvet, Cat of Nine Tails, The Bird with the Crystal Plumage, but those are all good names.
Sound cool.
Those sound like cool
Saber-Toothed
and scary. Saber-Toothed Tiger.
When we go back in time?
Yeah. But at the time, there were all of a sudden there was like a whole wave of other films with animal titles, and he was like, nobody else can do this. And so that's why he changed it. Yeah. So thank God changes it to Profondo Rosso.
Oh yeah.
Also would then go on to be re-released under a bunch of titles, as was like very common in this period. So other things it was released under, The Hatchet Murders, The Phantom of Terror, which I think is kind of fun.
That's fun.
And
that's fitting.
In Japan, Suspiria 2, even though there's no shared characters and this one came out first. So
they're just like, well, because I think I had a note, but I took it out in my, like, I had too many, like, review things, but it did really well in Japan.
Oh,
and there's actually in the 2004 The Grudge, like, Suspiria's reference in it, and took, like, so big audience for Argento there. So I think they were just trying to get their
they were trying to capitalize on how popular Suspiria was. So they were like, Deep Red Suspiria 2, which is so funny.
God, that's all I'm going to call it now.
But again, they're so different, right?
They are nothing.
Yeah.
They don't even feel in the same... Well, they kind of feel in the same world, I guess, but very far away.
They both live in a world where blood doesn't look like blood.
Yeah.
But I think that's kind of... That, to me, is one of the biggest similarities between them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then there's, like, other language titles, which I always find interesting. So in French, it was Les frissons de l'angoisse, which means the shivers of angst.
Ooh.
The German title was Rosso die Farbe des Tode, meaning red, the color of death.
Red, the color of death.
Very metal.
Yeah. That's cool.
And the original script for this film, I think, has to be the longest of any film we've covered. Do you want to guess how many pages it clocked in at?
This?
Yeah. Rosemary's Baby was like 237 originally.
That's longer than that?
This is much longer than that.
320.
That's hilarious. That's almost exactly what he cut it down to. Yeah. Original script was around 500 pages. And thankfully, because he's a Nepo baby and had a lot of film people in the family, his dad and his brother both sat him down and were like, dude, we don't understand what's going on here.
I'm so
You need
glad.
to cut some shit.
This makes me feel so validated in my watch experience.
My hope is that through talking about it, you will enjoy it more.
Yeah. Again, when I got it, that second half really got me. Pulled back in. But boy, oh boy, there's a lot.
There's a lot. There's so much. So yeah, then he, after listening to his brother and his dad, he cuts it down to 321 pages.
Oh my God, I was like so close.
Look at that. So shooting script 321, which I'm like, was he writing in like 22-point font? Like this,
I know.
Even this is another film where there's a lot of different versions and different lengths, but even the longest cut is only about 2 hours long. So I'm like, how does that math?
I was gonna say, isn't it like, what's a page supposed to be on screen?
Usually about a minute. Yeah. Usually about a page a minute. So like,
can you imagine the thing was like 3 hours? I would have been like, Siena,
Yeah.
I'm never watching a film you recommend again.
Sienna, you're kicked off the podcast.
Yeah.
It's just me and the skull now.
Those are just Siena-only episodes.
You just tie my bandana on the skull and you're like, Sienna,
I
film
think I
theory
would have,
red corner.
sent you a picture crying. 3 hours, 20 minutes would have killed me.
This is episode 20. Maybe by episode 200 we'll get there.
Maybe, yeah. Oh, yeah, episode 20. Yay!
Yeah, happy episode 20. Let's see. Oh, so one of the things that you and I have talked about with kind of what scares us in horror films is how much more visceral it feels to watch someone experience an injury that you've experienced than something like, we don't know what it feels like to get shot.
Right. Yeah.
Most people
Like,
don't
that
know
looks
what
like
it
it
feels
sucks.
like to get shot. Yeah, exactly. Most people don't know what it feels like to get stabbed.
Yeah.
And this was something that Dario and his co-writer talked a lot about.
Ooh.
And so they were like, let's make all of the injuries things that many people would experience in their real life, like getting scalded, like getting hit by furniture.
Yeah.
So there was like this intentional
Having your jaw put on corners of 50,000 things in a room.
Yes, fireplace attack. Bite the fireplace, bitch.
That's so interesting. Yeah, so you could like viscerally
Which
feel it.
and I don't know, how does that work for you? For me, I definitely like that scalding scene is painful.
Yeah. Me and Trav watched it and we were just audibly gasping. We're like,
Ooh.
oh, that sucks.
Good.
It's just not only like the drowning, like the not being able to breathe, but like
It's a cruel way to kill somebody. And really good special effects make it too.
yeah, it was really good actually.
Ugh. Yeah. There are many things in this film. The blood doesn't look real at all, and then there are things in this film that look too real, and it's an interesting balance. So, real quick, we've referenced giallo films several times on the podcast. What is a giallo film?
I'm good. I had a blurb about it. I knew you were going to talk about it. Yes.
I knew we would have
need a
this exchange.
refresher.
Yeah. Well, because I think I wasn't like prepared with a good definition because it was our very first episode when we first talked about this.
Yeah,
so
I
like
know, it's crazy.
now that I like know how to do this a little better, let me give you a definition of giallos. So we're gonna bring out the cult film
Here
reader.
comes the book.
This is the first of 2 times the book is gonna come out. I am gonna read to you from
Reading Time with Siena.
Yeah, story time. Playing with Genre, an introduction to the Italian giallo by Gary Needham. Genre issues. So in 1929, the Milanese publishing giant Mondadori launched a line of books in yellow covers, hence giallo, the Italian word for yellow, as part of a campaign to promote specifically tales of mystery and detection. These works consisted primarily of imported translations of British rational deduction fictions of the Sherlock Holmes variety and the early 20th century American quasi-fantastic murder mysteries built on the Edgar Allan Poe model, which this film in particular, I think, has a lot of Poe in it. There's like people getting walled up in rooms. There's people getting like threatened with a raven statue. There's like a lot of little Poe shout outs. Skipping ahead in the essay, the giallo in its cinematic form appears to be less fixed as a genre than its written counterpart. The term doesn't indicate, as genres often do, an essence, a description, or a feeling. It functions in a more peculiar and flexible manner as a conceptual category with a highly movable and permeable boundary that shifts around from year to year to include outright gothic horror, police procedurals, crime melodrama, and conspiracy films. And then he's like, so there's a lot of different things that a giallo could be. What are some of the common traits? And he identifies 5. Psychoanalysis, so Freud. Testimone oculare, eyewitnesses.
Testimone oculare.
Oculare. For whatever reason, he puts it specifically in Italian and all the rest are in English.
Great.
So I felt like we needed to do justice to that.
I love that.
Camp, which put a pin in that for Film Theory Rant Corner.
Yeah. We love camp.
We love camp. The literary, since it comes from these like paperback books and Sherlock Holmes and all this stuff. And then the post-colonial question. And I put a little quote there because I was like, that's not explaining enough on its own. So he says, travel, tourism, exoticism, hybridity, and foreignness. So things about, that stuff. So there's kind of your giallo starter kit. Basically, it's this subgenre, starts in Italy, but there are a lot of films that people categorize as giallo from other places too. And there's often this detective element. There's often this like Freudian element. But within that, it can touch on a whole lot of different things. And it just tends to be very like over the top and
Yeah.
like colorful and bloody and gory and
Yeah.
yeah, like this has a very different feeling to something like Eyes Without a Face, which is
Yes. Yeah.
yeah, you know,
I was just talking
another
about that last night.
oh, look at
Yeah.
that. Just as another European made
Mm.
art house horror from about 12 years before this.
Yeah.
Could not be more different in tone.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think it's that giallo, it's kind of one of those like I don't know how to describe it, but I know it when I see it
I was
type
gonna
of
say
things.
I have a better understanding now of what it is. So I think it is hard to like you can read off those things and be like, okay, I get it. But I think like watching at least 2 films,
It's
whatever,
just a vibe,
yeah.
man.
Yeah,
It's
it kind
just,
of is a vibe. And then you're like, oh, okay, I see
yeah,
those things.
and then you'll
Yeah.
like see other things and be like, oh, this has a giallo feeling to it.
Yeah,
Like
I'm
when
gonna
you
get that now.
yeah,
which
like
is really cool.
when you've described brand new cherry flavor to me, I've been like, this sounds kind of giallo-y. I don't know, but
Ooh,
just
might be as
you know,
yeah, I can see it now actually.
like the way you've talked about like the eye horror and stuff.
Yeah, there's
I
eye
don't
horror,
know.
definitely a camp element, definitely like
Yes.
there is like a weird mystery murder element to it too. So yeah,
Mhm.
definitely
So
I
there
think
you
has
go.
some elements. Yeah, but I would suggest anyone being like, I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
Just find a couple, just
Watch
watch.
Suspiria.
Yeah, I think Suspiria is a great
Suspiria is a good one
example.
to start with.
Yeah.
Some people don't think of it as a giallo. I think that's silly. It's a
It's like
giallo.
everything you just
Yeah.
said.
Yeah. Yeah.
Literally everything you just said. It's like yep, 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 yep,
Yeah.
yep.
So you can go fuck yourselves.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah.
fine.
Wrong.
Goblin music. Let's talk about
Goblin
goblin music.
music.
So this is Deep Red. Part of the reason that I love this film so much is it's not only where Dario and Daria meet, it's also
Yeah.
where he first collaborates with Goblin. So
Oh,
this is it's their first time, and so this is like the start of the things that make Dario Argento
Yeah.
in a lot of ways.
The sort of things that make Siena Siena.
Yes, it's true because I'm just copy pasting everything I can from the Argento family. It's terrifying. I promise I did not
Unofficial
kill
Argento.
Anthony Bourdain. So this is the first time where I've covered a film where the soundtrack has its own Wikipedia page, which tells
Oh.
you how influential this is.
Yeah.
Goblin is usually described as prog rock, but like they touch on so many different genres, you just kind of got to listen to them.
Yeah, because this feels so like jazzy.
It's very jazzy. Like you said, there's a lot of hi-hats going on.
Yeah.
There's also a lot of synths. It's like very there it feels like it's anticipating 80s music in a lot of ways.
I said that.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. There was some moments that sounded like Killer Clowns.
Yes, there are. And I bet that was probably a reference point that they used for the score.
Gotta be.
Mhm.
Yeah.
However, Goblin was very much not Argento's top choice. He originally hired a jazz pianist, Giorgio Gaslini, who is still in the credits, but he hated his work. He was like, this is terrible.
Oh,
We're not gonna... So he used 3 tracks, but the original theatrical release miscredited it as music by Giorgio Gaslini performed by the Goblins, which nobody was happy about.
Yeah. Yikes.
So Argento then tries and fails to get, guess what famous 60s, 70s psychedelic rock band to do the soundtrack?
I am blanking on everything because I don't want to guess.
He tried to get Pink Floyd.
Oh.
Isn't that weird? It could be cool.
That kind of makes sense.
I could kind of see
Can you
it,
imagine when they're at like their height?
Yeah. To get Pink Floyd and like Animals and like that era of Pink Floyd. Wow. Fascinating.
Would have been perfect though.
It would have been really cool. And also I think you can see some similarities between Pink Floyd and Goblin too. But so then Goblin is basically just this local band and he's like, all right, I'll give you guys a shot. Show me what you can do. And their lead composer sits down and writes 2 songs in one night. And Argento's like, I think I like these guys.
Oh my God, shut up.
Isn't that adorable? It's like an artistic meet cute. I love that. And so I also wanted to say, I think one of the reasons that giallo in general and possibly Argento in particular can be hard to get into if you like don't have some context to them is that like most European films at this time, like most non-English European films, I should say, almost all of his films were shot without synchronized sound, which means
which is wild.
It's very weird. And it's very like it creates an unnerving thing, particularly because both of these films were shot with actors speaking different languages on set.
Yeah. I have some little bits on that, but their mouths are moving. You're like, wait, that feels
that's
a
not
little
right.
off.
Yeah. And so sometimes sometimes it'll just be like a couple seconds off. Sometimes what they're saying won't match up at all. And so I was thinking, partially because we just watched a whole bunch of James Wan, but it almost feels like the characters, like there's like a ventriloquist thing going on, where it's like,
well, homegirl, I think Daria looks so uncanny valley in Deep Red. It throws me. She looks like she's wearing a face of her face. And I hate it.
Which is like, and it looks to me very intentional, because
it
nobody
no
else in the film looks that. Yeah. And I also just like, I need to take a moment to talk about Daria Nicolodi's like fashion sense and the way she holds herself in this movie, because I just think she's so hot. Like,
even Uncanny Valley?
Yes, absolutely.
I can't get past that. It freaks me out. I'll take the dummy that runs out of the chest over that.
The way that she beats him, the way she like cheats and beats him in that arm wrestling scene.
Oh, the arm wrestling scene was great. We were like, is she gonna? Yeah, she is.
Yeah. Which also apparently, Argento had like a great time shooting most of this movie. That was apparently the scene that he had the worst time on, because the actors rehearsed it 70 times to get it right. And Argento was like, 70. I just want to move on. And they were like, it's not perfect yet. So,
oh, wow. Yeah. That's like an opposite.
You normally hear about it the other way, right?
Yeah. So, and him with being a hand model, you'd think.
I know. You'd think that he'd be more particular about that.
It's like, your hand's not. Let me put my hand in there instead.
Let me give you a hand.
Put my hand in your sleeve really quick. I can make this happen.
Let me turn you into a puppet. Yeah. There's my hand tidbit. Top choice for Marcus, the lead David Hemmings guy, was this Italian.
James Spader?
Yeah. No. Is
the one who looks like James Spader? The main guy.
Main guy, yes. Yeah. So top choice was an Italian actor named Lino Capoliccio. We're gonna go with that. He gets in a car accident on the day that he's supposed to meet with Dario Argento. He's okay, but it's a bad accident. It takes him several months to recover. When he finally goes back and looks in his car, the script for Deep Red is sitting bloodstained on the front seat. So that's just a weird little.
I hope he like kept it and framed it.
Right? I mean, you'd have to.
Can we buy that on eBay? Did he put it up for sale? That's
yeah. So disgusting. Also, your little Timothee Chalamet shout out.
Yeah.
I'm assuming you're talking about Carlo's lover, right? When we find out that he's gay.
Yeah. When he walks.
Guess what?
What?
Little Pride Month tidbit. Played by an actress.
Yeah.
That's a woman in drag.
Yeah. That makes
Isn't
no sense.
that so
I love when
hot?
the genders are so and I'm like, why am I? It's because
yeah,
I love it.
It's so hot.
No way.
Yeah. So woman playing a queer man and so gorgeous.
Yeah.
Just stunning.
Yeah, really just a stunning human being.
Yeah.
Oh my god, that's so funny. Never would have guessed.
Pride Month tidbit.
Yeah.
Tidbit, yep. Fun little locations tidbit. Even though the film is set in Rome, they shot mainly in Turin, which Argento chose specifically because at the time that they were shooting, Turin was the city in Italy with the highest concentration of Satanists.
He was like, let's go where the people are.
He was like, yeah, let's go where my people are. He was like, let's go wherever the highest concentration of Satanists is. It was actually the second highest in Europe after Lyon, France. So
really?
Yeah. He was like,
interesting. I wonder if the Satanists are still hanging out there.
Good question. I was kind of wondering the same thing. I was like, well, where are Satan
tour
figures
stop.
now? Yeah.
Do a tour of all the high Satanist
Speaking
capitals.
of tour stops, though, in Rome, Dario Argento co-owns with another Italian horror director a memorabilia shop called Deep Red. And there's it's like horror memorabilia, not just from his films.
I would have known this when I went to Italy. I didn't know anything about Argento then.
And the entire basement is filled with props from his old movies, so it's like a little Argento museum. I want to go so badly.
Yeah,
big bucket list item. So
very cool.
Anyway, go if any of y'all are going to Rome anytime. Yeah. My dad's actually going to Rome. Dad, go
Dad,
there.
Pick us up something,
please.
That's so cool.
And the building used for the House of the Screaming Child was actually being used by nuns as a boarding school at the time of production, which I felt like was very.
Is this the haunted house?
Yeah, which I thought had very like the orphanage vibe.
Yeah, don't like.
So just thought you'd enjoy that.
Yeah. Did they get the
Um,
actual kids to do all the
right?
little screaming
I
in
feel like
that
you'd
scene?
have to,
Yeah.
right?
It's like, come on.
Cheap,
Ugh,
easy.
yucky.
They're screaming
Echoing
already.
children sound.
Ugh,
No, thanks.
so gross. Ugh. Art history tidbit. There's a ton of Edward Hopper paintings referenced.
Oh, yeah.
So there's
A lot of art in this.
There's a lot of art in this. When Marcus and Carla are playing piano, a woman kind of walks up behind them and is dressed to look like the Hopper painting The Automats. And Marcus walking past the blue bar at the beginning is like a direct quote of Nighthawks.
Oh, funny.
That painting.
Oh.
And this is actually, moving on to reception, one of the very few horror films that was pretty generally well received at the time it was released. Which
Really?
is kind of fascinating because it feels like it wouldn't be in some
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Like, it wasn't well received by me at first. Yeah,
So-
wild. Because, I mean, I'll talk about it, but Suspiria wasn't.
Suspiria was not as well received
Not at
on
all.
its which
And
is
I feel like
interesting because I feel like now
It flipped.
Suspiria is much better known. I would
It's
say.
better known. Yeah.
I think Deep Red is still. It's a favor of horror directors. It's like a horror director's favorite horror movie type of thing,
Gotcha.
and we'll talk about that too. About some of the directors who've talked about
Ugh.
loving this
Oh,
film.
no. You
you
know
can-
who you are.
you-
Quentin Tarantino?
It holds a 93% on Rotten Tomatoes. Is the point I'm trying to get
yeah.
to. So very well received.
Mm.
However, one of the very few negative reviews at the time, I just had to quote from because it's like a great burn.
I actually love when they do a really,
Yes.
you're like, I get that.
I'm like, I love Argento, but like,
Yeah,
yes,
that's kind of
baby,
great.
read him. Vincent Canby in the New York Times called Argento a director of incomparable incompetence, which I just thought was like, it's just too fun to say.
yeah,
not to.
incomparable.
Incomparable incompetence. I referenced earlier that there's like a ton of different versions. Argento himself cut about 26 minutes for the English release of
Oh, wow.
Hemmings and Nickelodeon having like romantic interactions, which I think is a really funny thing to cut of your wife. But
I don't think it was needed, so
I've got some questions about that, but I do think it was a good choice. But because he cut those in between the release of like the original and the English versions, there are now complete versions that, because there are no English dubs of those scenes, will be in English up until those cutscenes, and then we'll switch to Italian with English subtitles, and then we'll go back to English. So weird. If you watch a version that's like that, that's why. Then there were like a whole bunch of different things with the ending credits, where there were a bunch of versions released where instead of like continuous shot of David Hemmings looking down at a pool of blood,
love that shot.
It's so gorgeous. There are some that ended on like a still frame, and apparently people care a lot about that. Oh no, we can't have a still frame.
Still frame.
There were also cuts to this film for animal cruelty, which
that lizard got actually stabbed.
that lizard got actually
I was very
stabbed.
upset about that.
And that's
Slap all the kids you want.
I agree.
Don't put a pin in a lizard.
Especially for something that's like really not
Did the
important
bird get
to the
hurt
plot.
too? The bird looked like
The
it was
bird was
dying.
okay. The bird never got cut for animal cruelty, at least.
Okay.
So that wasn't something people objected to.
Yeah.
The two cuts that were originally made, and they were both revoked later, actually. One was the fighting dogs. A board watched it back and were like, actually, those dogs are playing. It's okay.
Okay.
And the stabbed lizard, which apparently was put back in after being reclassified as a special effect. And I'm like, how?
No,
What?
that thing was.
That's a
You would've had to,
lizard
like-
dying on camera.
Yeah, you would have had to like glue it. The way that thing's moving,
Yeah.
it's
It's moved.
It's stabbed.
Yeah, that's the way an
Ugh.
animal moves that's dying. So that's horrible. Tarantino.
Which, by the way, thanks guys for listening to the podcast, because you're getting us
Thanks.
up on the film history charts, and
Yes.
we're right under Tarantino's podcast.
I am so pleased.
So please keep listening
Somebody
and
get
sharing
me a fucking katana. I'm
and
coming for
and
that
reviewing,
man.
because like I would love to be above him in the Apple Podcast charts
Oh
for
my
film
God.
history. I would die.
The
It would be Siena's
satisfaction.
best birthday
That would
gift.
be the best
So
birthday
share,
present, you guys.
please review. Listen. You guys have been awesome.
Yes.
So thank you for that.
Thank you for that. With that
it's
said,
not our doing, it's your doing.
that's all on you. With that said, I must acknowledge that the universe is forcing me to confront the fact that
You kind of like him?
no,
Oh. Sounds like kind of.
but we like all of the same things. We do. We do. And I hate it.
Hates it.
I hate it. So I have a quote from
Uh,
Tarantino
that you
about how
like.
much he loves Deep Red.
Of
And I'm
course.
like, this sounds like I wrote it.
Yeah. Oh,
and I
no.
hate it. So he said that he watched it when he was like 14 or 15.
Okay. That makes sense.
Makes perfect sense. And that he was never somebody who was like scared by horror films, but that this one like entranced him. And I'm like, yeah, same dude.
Wow.
Great. He said, I went to the theater. Can I do it, Quentin Tarantino? No, I'm not going to do it.
I like forgot what he sounded like for a second. You did like that.
Yeah.
Which is kind of like you too.
No!
Same speech cadence. Siena just is slowly gonna like show up on the podcast and start like conforming, like wearing in like his like suits.
Silence is just so fun, Jan. Okay, moving on. Oh no, I do have his speech cadence. On air identity crisis.
That's your second birthday gift from me. Here's your true identity.
Rip off my mask.
Yeah.
It's just Quentin Tarantino. I'm sweating so hard right now, you guys. Okay. So I went to the theater on my own to see it. And that was before I knew who Dario Argento even was. I didn't even know that it was an Italian movie. I go to see it and there's these horrendous murders and these horrendous kills, one right after the other, with just complete sadism. Not only just a tremendous amount of blood, but also the loudest soundtrack I'd ever heard in a movie just pounding at you. A woman scalded to death. That was like, wow, this movie is really tough stuff. But it was thrilling. It was absolutely thrilling.
You nailed it. My cheeks hurt. Oh my god. But also, everything that you would say.
I am
that is
Quentin
literally everything.
Tarantino.
Yeah. That's a great summary.
He's not wrong.
I know.
He's
oh my
not
god.
wrong.
I'm so impressed that you were able to read that fast.
Like
Not
I said,
happening for me.
We were on recording deadline today, so maybe I just need to do the whole thing as Quentin Tarantino.
Can we point to speed ourselves? 2 times speed ourselves.
Oh my god.
That's so funny. But yeah, it's got a lot of
he's not,
cool elements
he's
to it.
not wrong.
Yeah.
Wow, I'm like out of breath.
Take some water.
This film's also like seeped into pop culture in a lot of different ways. There was a musical adaptation in 2007, which I'm like,
2007.
I kind of want to see that.
Yeah.
I don't think it would be good, but I want it.
It can't be.
It can't be good, but I want it. There are kind of shots from Deep Red that are referenced in a lot of other horror movies. One of them is Cronenberg's Scanners. The kind of lead up to the exploding head in that movie is a reference to the intro scene where the psychic is like seeing the murder, seeing through the murderer's eyes at the beginning of this film. There's also references to it in Halloween 2. We talked about this was like a big inspiration for Billy the Puppet, horror memorabilia store. So like it's just like it's made its way through the horror world.
Yeah.
I don't think it's seeped into the rest of pop culture the way that Suspiria has, where like even if you haven't seen Suspiria, you know that it's a film.
Yeah. I was gonna say it even reminds me like the whole scene where he's chipping away the wall. Like that just feels like a reference to like every other movie that comes after it with like those hand-drawn things. I don't know if anything came before it that also, but it felt very like, oh my god, there's so many like that moment felt so big, and I was like, that's just in like every horror movie now, like the creepy drawing.
Yeah, like the children's drawings. I mean, it's very The Orphanage, I think, references this film a lot. Like
The Ring does it too. Yeah, I just feel like so many things do it.
Yeah, so it's you can definitely like trace the lineage from this film to others. But like I said, even people who really love Argento and love this film, he's an acquired taste.
It's an acquired taste.
He's
absolutely.
specific.
Yeah.
And let's talk about why. Because like usually I think that's kind of what we like about a director, right? Is that they have such a unique flavor that like we can call them an auteur. It's like that's clearly an Argento film. Both of these, even though they're very different, it's like that's clearly an Argento film. So why is his taste so divisive?
Yeah.
Film Theory Rant Corner.
Yay! We made it.
Birthday Rant Corner. So something new came up for me watching these films yesterday. Again, I've seen both of these films many times. I love Argento. He is a huge influence on my work. He I feel like I have dreams that take place in especially the Suspiria set, but also the Deep Red set.
Yeah.
But this time I was thinking about, like, why is it that um there is this way in which there's something about his work that I feel like I have to preface when I'm introducing it to people. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
not just to give context, but to be like, prepare yourself for something other than whatever you're picturing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, we've been doing it like the whole episode.
The whole
So, yeah.
episode, which, like, I hope that this convinces somebody to go and watch some Dario Argento. If
Yeah.
so, then, like,
I
I've
think
done my job.
like, it's worth seeing just to see.
Yes.
Depending, it doesn't matter what your outcome is, but it's just worth knowing about, I think.
I think you'll have a wild ride,
Yeah.
whether you enjoy the ride or
Yeah.
not. And if you like
Absolutely.
horror, I think that's probably a lot of what you're going for in
Yeah.
film. But at this point, we turn
book
back
comes
to
out.
our Needham essay. So I told you to put a pin in camp.
Yes.
Let's take that pin out now. So he really only has, I'll point this to the camera. This is the single paragraph where he talks about the role of camp in giallo. He doesn't get into it a whole lot, but what he said really fascinated me. He says, such is the giallo that it panders to both readings, erotic anticipation and camp sensibility. The giallo is a document of 60s and 70s style that years later can be seen as utterly camp. Even the most tired of gialli is capable of being resurrected as a masterpiece, thanks to making things queer and wardrobe departments whose creativity and expression at the time exceeds that of the director. And I was thinking about that and I was like, I feel like that's probably true for giallo in general, but that doesn't feel to me like it really gets at what's going on with Argento because as we've talked about with camp, if you go by the like old school Susan Sontag definition,
Yeah, which we talked about on another episode.
which we talked about on another episode, then part of what makes camp is that it's earnest, that it takes itself seriously. And I think part of what I love about both Dario Argento and Goblin, and particularly when they work together, is that they are both playful and they're playing off of each other's playfulness. Like, I wrote down one of the things that I love about Goblin music is that whenever like a Goblin score hits at the start of a kill scene in a Dario Argento movie, it gives me this like, here we go again feeling.
Yeah.
There's
like
like
that's what I
this,
said. Like, we know we're getting down to business when the hi-hat comes out because
it's like a dance
leads you up.
scene almost, and it feels like the composer and the director are dancing around this murder together. And so it doesn't feel to me like it's taking itself seriously enough to be that kind of camp. And so I was like, what is it? I was like, it's decadent, it's colorful, it's very obsessed with interiors, both like physical spaces and also mental, like the psychological. And I was like, I think it's more melodramatic. And I was like, well, what do we associate melodrama with?
Yeah.
The feminine.
Oh,
And I was like, I think that there is something about Dario Argento's filmmaking and his giallo in particular that has this over the top, colorful, aesthetically lush, and obsessed with like the household and the interior that feels to me very akin to like Douglas Sirk melodramas or
I have
like
no idea what that is.
just like 1950s weepies, like movies about women's issues. And like all of his villains are women. All of the murderers are women. Most of the main characters are women. I think that there is something about his films that actually, maybe in some ways kind of similarly to Polanski, is really fascinated with this idea of what is the horror of the female experience from a male director's perspective. And like the horror of trying to get under a woman's skin.
Oh, I can't wait to talk about Suspiria with you.
That's what I was thinking. Oh, I'm so glad. And I was like, I think part of it is that many of us culturally associate horror with masculinity. Like, think of it as like a very masculine genre.
Which is so funny because
most horror fans are femmes.
Femmes, true crime femmes, but like also most horror
is experienced by women. Yeah. And I feel like a lot of the horror directors that I gravitate to, like Argento, like Polanski, are very much about the female and the feminine, and like a style of filmmaking that is very feminine.
Catered to, yeah.
And so I almost think that's part of it, is like oftentimes we go into horror movies expecting, I mean, even just thinking about the words that are used to describe horror, like grindhouse, and like you think of like slasher movies, and like it's a lot of like hard, angular words. And there's something about giallo and Argento's giallo in particular that just feels like lush and cushiony and rich in a way that I think if you come in expecting something like hard and fast and masculine in your horror, there's something about this that is like ooey gooey in a way that might really get at you if you're not prepared. Which I hope tees you up well. I don't want to take too much time. I have watch notes, but I think the only one that I really want to shout out, because I think it also ties into Suspiria, is that this time watching through, I was like, oh man, glass is really important in this movie in ways I didn't think about. And this is also what I was thinking about with tintypes too, because, you know, the glass of the lens, the glass in the camera, glass is crucial to revealing information about the killer at 3 different points in the plot. There's the fogged glass in the bathroom. There's the shard of glass that scratches the stucco off the mirror or off the wall, and then there's the final mirror, which we think is a painting and is not. So I was like, ooh, glass, baby.
There's so much glass, even like in Suspiria, the first kill pressed up, and then the glass in her face, and then even all the glass shattering at the end too. So
and so it's just like, there's particularly when, you know, there's all those lines of dialogue about like, maybe it's a painting that's of something so important you didn't realize. And what is the important thing? It's a mirror.
Was he saying that like during his like walking through the hall?
Yeah.
Oh, I knew that hall was going to come back too.
Of course. And those paintings are so creepy.
Aren't they terrifying?
Yeah. Quick second to shout out the art direction on this movie.
That hallway was just so cool and so filled with some of the most like just terrifying art. Like truly terrifying art. If that wasn't my home, I'd be like, ooh.
So upsetting. So that's Deep Red, everybody. I hope y'all enjoyed it. I love talking about this movie so much, and I just, if y'all do anything for my birthday, go watch an Argento film.
Dealer's
I hope
choice,
you like it. Yeah, dealer's choice. There's a lot of them for free right now, so enjoy.
Zumo.
Yeah.
You can find them for free. So not sponsored.
And now I'm so sweaty. Let's take a break from this Quentin Tarantino impersonation. Come back after.
Siena's gonna bring out the Tarantino suit, the Siena suit. So we'll be right back.
Looking to make a lasting memory in Santa Fe? How about one you can hold? James O'Connell with High Desert Alchemy is a modern practitioner of the 1850s photographic process tintypes. Tintypes, the first instant photo technology, offer you the chance to step back into a time when magic and science were woven together. And you can see here, Al and I just got to enjoy this ourselves. We had a pretty magical time. For 4 years now, James has been pushing the boundaries of this process while also resurrecting the techniques of old masters. And he will teach you all about it as you go through the process. Use the code SPLICE10 at checkout to get 10% off your first studio session with James at High Desert Alchemy. Visit high-desert-alchemy.com and use code SPLICE10 for 10% off your next session. And we're back. Oh, I'm so excited.
Suspiria.
I love this movie so much.
Yeah.
This, I think I told you, one of my favorite Suspiria watch experiences. Not my first time watching it, but one of the coolest was at this bar called Videology in Brooklyn.
Right.
Yeah, it's like a movie bar. So it's like a bar, but they have like a proper like screen and projector.
So cool.
And they, for Halloween, did a Suspiria screening with professional ballet dancers who like did some of the dance scenes live, like during the murders, and like danced through the audience. It was so cool.
At a bar?
At a bar, yeah.
That is more things
I was
like
quite
that need to
tipsy.
happen.
It was so much fun. I was like, somebody's gonna like fall over on the table. Yeah, it was great.
There was God, that's a great way to watch that.
So
you can't beat that, I don't think.
Well, and I took my ex who was a ballet dancer too, so she like knew all the stuff that was going on and was like giving little ballet tidbits, and I was like, this is
I wonder if they're still doing that.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Videology? Anybody?
Yeah,
Anybody?
anybody? I was gonna say there was a bar in Long Beach where I lived, the Fourth Horseman. It was a bar pizza place, the Fourth Horseman, and they would play like B horror and have like metal music and stuff, and it was just like decorated really cool. And I should have gone there more when I lived there. I feel like, but man, I saw some like I'm like, I need to start watching more just like grungy, just off the walls like B horror.
Well, and that's like, I feel like that's the kind of place you want to watch something like this.
Yeah.
Like
Drinking a beer, having pizza,
because
and
again,
like metal music blast. You have no context of what's going on. It's just like the gore and camp on screen.
Delicious.
Yeah.
Because like again, you don't want to. The movie doesn't take itself that seriously, I think, and the less seriously you take it, the more fun you have with it.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, I can understand people finding him pretentious, Argento, but
yeah, I don't get that feeling. I don't really. I know people have that argument.
Having fun.
People have that argument though. I've read online, seeing that, and I see a lot of like, again, not to jump to critiques, but a lot of people's see Suspiria as a pretentious film and like, why does it get so much praise? So this was my first time watching it.
Yeah.
I've definitely seen so many images online throughout the years, and I'm pretty
it's
sure
very Tumblred.
Yes. Yeah. And I'm pretty sure I've seen clips in film school. I definitely like the opening scene. I was like, I feel like I know everything that's going to happen. I'm like, I must have watched clips at some point.
Did you recognize any of the score out of curiosity? Because I get that like title track, that like da 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 da.
No, but I loved
stuck in my head.
It's so good. It's creepy.
So good.
The music, I like the music in this one better, which we'll get to. But yeah, this was my first time like fully watching it. And I kind of said both of these films, I feel like my film school self would have like died over and like watched, especially Suspiria. I think I would have watched. I thank you so much for giving me this one's definitely more up my alley. But I think I watch films differently now than I used to. I think that's why I like 2000s horror so much, because it's just like a time,
it just hits.
There's nothing like groundbreaking happening. The acting's fine. It's just like a ride. And these are definitely things that I think like Suspiria, I think, well, both of them, I think you can find joy in watching them and entertainment in watching them, but I also think there's a lot of moments that you can like appreciate shots and production design and the music. And so like I think I watch films like this differently, and I have to go back to a place that I don't often go to anymore, which bums me out sometimes that I'm not like that anymore, because I feel like my college and like early 20s me and you would have just like, this would have been a 5-hour podcast. And now like you heard my watch notes. That's like how I watch things now, which I don't think either way to watch these things is inherently bad. But I just wanted to like bring attention to that I always like to be someone that like appreciates something even though I wouldn't like necessarily watch it again. Like I don't think I'll ever watch Deep Red again.
That's fine.
But like I was really happy that by the end I like got it. Definitely like this one more.
Not surprising.
But for different reasons. So comes 2 years after Deep Red, which I found really interesting that these are so different.
Yeah, and it's a quick turnaround.
Yeah, and a quick turnaround. So 75 for yours, 77 for mine. If you don't know, Suspiria is about an American newcomer going to a prestigious German ballet academy and comes to realize that the school is a front for something more sinister amid a series of grisly murders. So, yeah, and I didn't really know anything about this movie, so these were both just like I had to like read. This one you can get pretty off the bat of what it's about. Versus
this one is much less confusing plot-wise.
Yes. You can kind of get it like right away.
You can tell that this one is not a 500-page script.
This is a normal one. So you kind of talked about it, but I didn't know that Suspiria was part of this trilogy of the movies about the three mothers. So Inferno in 1980, and then we have Mother of Tears that you mentioned, 2007. All of these trilogies are based off mythology from the three mothers that was inspired by English essayist Thomas de Quincey's 1845 book Suspiria de
Profundi, I think.
Is it okay? I was like, it's either profundus or profundi.
Profundi, I think. I don't know.
Dad?
Neither. If my dad was here, he could help us, but he's not. So enjoy my terrible Italian, Dad.
I often do the Google speech and have it say it to me, and then I write it phonetically for myself.
I'll go on YouTube and be like, how do you pronounce Toby Hooper?
Bless the internet sometimes. Didn't use it this time for anyone. So this book is a collection of essays, in case you want to know, in the form of prose poems, and combined like hallucinogenic induced visions with thought-provoking examination
I need to
of
read
like the
this.
nature of memory, dreams, and imagination. As someone who like loves,
Yes.
I saw you posted the other day doing a dream journal. I used to have a dream journal, but I still have, because if anyone's interested, that's where I got like all my film ideas from in college.
Same. Yeah.
And you can train yourself. You really can
Mhm.
train yourself day after day. Just write any little bit, and you can
Yeah.
get to a point where, you know,
You
I have
remember.
dreams that I still so vividly remember from when I was 20.
Yeah, I feel like I can like step back into them.
So I feel like this is probably a really cool, it's got to be a really cool thing if all these films were based off of it. So that's there for you. Tagline tagline is, do you know anything about witches?
Ooh.
And then there's some other ones that I wrote down too that I thought were kind of fun, because again, I didn't even know the tagline of this film. I was
didn't
like,
either.
Suspiria, with that shot of the blood.
Yeah.
You know, and the glass ceiling.
Suspiria, colors, baby.
Colors, baby. Red, blue, and
Suspiria,
yellow.
deep red.
Yeah, truly. So some other fun taglines for this were witchcraft's most macabre tale.
Ooh.
Psycho meets The Exorcist with no holds barred. I thought you'd like that one. There were like 20. I had to pick out my faves. Do I think that's true? I would say more for Deep Red.
Yeah, Deep Red is very Psycho meets The Exorcist, actually.
Right? Yeah. I
Not
thought there was
Suspiria.
Yeah, not Suspiria. So
No.
wrong. And the only thing more terrifying than the last 12 minutes of this film are the first 90
I do know that one,
or
which
80
I love.
that the
Yeah.
time kind of differs.
Mhm.
You can run from it, you can hide from it, you can escape from it. Which I think that's like a most commonly used one that I've seen on the posters. Once you've seen it, you will never again feel safe in the dark. So those are my favorite ones.
I love it. Do you have a favorite out of those?
I really like the, do you know anything about witches? Hey, you know anything about witches? Watch Suspiria.
Say, fella.
Say, sir. Hey, boy, what do you know about witches? So that's my favorite.
Howdy,
So
partner.
stupid.
Say, you know anything about witches?
Say, Sonny. So this film's rated R. It was writer-director Dario Argento, which I didn't realize he did the 1998 bonkers Phantom of the Opera that I feel people talk
Did
about.
he do that?
Yes.
How did I not know that?
Charlie, who used to work at the theater, talked about it. So kind of want to give it a watch. And then he also did a TV movie called Do You Like Hitchcock? And it was done in 2005, which is about like a college film student obsessed with the works of Hitchcock. And there's like investigates like a murder, and it sounds really cool. And I'm like, shit.
Well, I was reading about their family tree. I saw that in Do You Like Hitchcock, he has his daughter's first movie like up for sale in the video store.
Oh my God, stop.
That's
so
cute.
Yeah, so we might have to give that
might have to give that a watch.
Yeah. So he obviously wrote this with his at the time wife. I believe they were married on this. I have notes for her. So Daria.
Yes.
I'm gonna skip past because I have notes for her later.
Love.
And then of course writing credit is given to Thomas D. Quincy. So we have cinematographer Luciano Tovoli. This film just have to give him a shout because we'll talk about him later.
Ooh.
This film is starring Jessica Harper as Susie, who's also in the 2018. Have you? Because you've seen the 2018 as how do you say her name? Anke?
I can't remember what the character's name is, but she does reappear in the 2018 version. Watch the 2018 version.
I want to watch it.
Like, I'm such a hardcore Suspiria lover that I was like, I refuse to watch the remake.
I was surprised to hear that you watched the remake.
Yeah, and like I thought I was gonna hate it, and I actually think I now use it as like my go-to example of what a good remake can be, because I think it takes certain ideas from the original and treats them in an entirely different way, and does not try to do. It doesn't try to ape Argento.
Yeah.
Which I think
love that.
Yeah. You can't beat him at his own game, so do your own thing.
Yeah. That's the way to do remakes. So I thought it was cool that she made an appearance in that, or is a big part of it. I don't know.
It's a pretty big role.
Wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
Which I love.
I love a actor writer. And then she's more recently also in a horror movie starring Timothée Chalamet. Bones and All. She's in that too. So that's some more recent.
I would love
things.
to talk about Bones and All sometime because I have very deeply conflicted feelings on it.
It's
also Luca Guadagnino who did the Suspiria remake. So yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'd like to see it.
Many things. Cannibal Love Story.
Ah.
Yeah.
So, Dario Argento was quoted saying that he was always disappointed that we're talking about Jessica Harper,
Mhm.
that he was really disappointed that the Italian audiences never got to hear her real voice because it was
It's
dubbed.
so
He was
good.
really in love with her voice, and I just think that's such a cute thing to say.
No, and I so agree. It's one of the things that I note for myself every time because she has such a like tiny, frail-looking frame
Mhm.
and such a like resonant, deep
See, I don't
speaking
know what
voice.
I gotta watch the
Oh,
new.
did you watch the Italian dub?
Oh no, then did I hear her
You did hear
voice?
her voice
Okay.
then. Yeah.
Oh yeah, because it was really deep. Because
It's really
she
deep,
would
yeah.
always do she sounds so deadpan half the
Yeah,
time.
which she's got like a very
She's like,
like April Ludgate
oh.
thing going
Yeah,
on.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
cracked me up every time. So I did hear her voice.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
great. It's great.
Yeah. Like, well, and imagine how different it would feel if she's like, hello.
No, I
Like,
love it.
yeah.
She's like, sup.
Yeah, it's great. It
Oh,
fucks.
there's a killer.
Yeah.
So Dario also he cast Jessica after seeing her in Brian De Palma's Phantom of Paradise in 1974.
Mhm.
And apparently Jessica Harper turned down the part in Annie Hall, which I think is like a
Love
wild thing. I
that.
don't
What
know
an
why I put these like
icon.
random
I
things,
love
but
that. I
yeah.
had no idea.
Yeah. So she
That's
turned
so
that
fun.
down
What
to
an
do this because that
icon.
came out in 77. Can you
Oh, I
imagine?
love
Would have
that.
been a whole.
Totally different universe.
I'm like, with what's her name? We even like. I feel like that was her
Yeah,
catapult.
and like then she and Woody Allen went on to like such a long
Yeah.
collab.
Wild,
Whoa.
right?
That is like
Wild.
truly like a two different film universe timelines split off at that point.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whoa.
So put that in there.
Imagine if then she'd done Suspiria.
Imagine.
Ooh.
The
Anyway,
world would not
continue.
exist. So originally the role was going to go to Daria for Susie. And
Mm.
according to her, the lead role was actually written for her. Obviously, she wrote it for
Yeah,
herself.
that would make sense.
With Dario. And the studio insisted on an American actress to be cast for it.
Oh.
So they thought it would be more marketable.
I do feel like they found an American actress who has a similar physical vibe though
Mhm.
to Daria, because like again, both of them, I think part of what I love about Dario Argento's female characters is that they have this kind of like tough, no nonsense, almost like His Girl Friday type of feel to them.
I was going to say, it kind of reminds you of the actress in Day of the Dead, where she's like really
Yes.
like tough,
Yeah.
still very feminine, but just
Mhm.
like, you're like, she can
Just
get
very
shit
no
done.
nonsense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, she obviously said, girlfriend at the time. So maybe I don't think they were married yet.
Oh my
But you still
God.
can see Daria twice in the film. I don't know if you noted. So
I
she's,
didn't.
she could be spotted in the film's opening sequence.
Oh, is
that
she getting off the
shows-
plane?
Yeah. So walking through the airport, and then she also provides the gravelly voice of Helena Marcus, and like the wheezy, and so that's her doing that gravelly, creepy voice at the
Oh my
end that
God,
we
what
see.
an icon. I love that.
Who I may have so who plays Helena is actually not credited. She, according to Jessica, is a 90-year-old former prostitute that Dario just found on the streets.
That's so
And was
Argento
like,
coded. I love it.
come on. So I love that kind of collaboration that happened with bringing this woman, this old prostitute baddie,
I love
and then
that.
dubbing with his girlfriend / wife. Yeah. So,
Again, what
fun
a
little-
complex Freudian family. I fucking love it.
Yeah. Some other kind of fun casting tidbits are, you had mentioned it, notoriously no one could understand each other in this film because they all kind of
Mhm.
spoke different languages.
Mhm.
So one of the things, a West German actor, Rudolph, I'm not going to say his last name, who plays Professor Milius,
Oh yeah.
couldn't speak any English or Italian. And so in the scene where he talks to Jessica, who plays Susie, about the
Mhm.
witches, she couldn't understand him. So to give cues, he would just kick her, like play footsie with her underneath and be like, okay, I'm done with my line. It's your turn now. Which I think is so sweet.
That's so cute.
Yeah. So that's how they were able to kind of
I do think
know when to
that
talk next.
I think, to be fair, this is part of why giallo films have a specific feel to them, is that because
I
they're
love
all
it.
yeah, but like because there are all these language barriers, I think there's a theatricality to the acting
Yes.
where it's not trying to be naturalistic.
Yeah. No.
Yeah,
Yeah. If you're going at this and like, that looks,
Yeah.
because it is.
because it is. Yeah.
So I tried to look up. So this film took 4 months to shoot, mostly shot in Varese,
Mm.
mainly because of the architecture there. They really liked the 19th
Mhm.
century architecture. And then it was also shot in Rome, at specifically a place called the Whale House, which is the building And a place called the Whale House, which is in Germany,
Is that the
which is
red
like
building?
it's the dance academy.
It's
Um,
such a cool.
it's
Ugh.
the locations on this are wild.
That's one that, again, like, I have so many dreams that are set in that ballet academy, or in like various
Funny.
versions
Oh,
of
wild.
that ballet
Whoa, I
academy.
don't want to go there. Your dreams are terrifying.
Welcome to my dream diary, baby.
So I tried to look up the budget for this, and I don't know if you know, I could not find
I
anything.
couldn't find anything for Deep Red either,
Ugh.
and even profits I couldn't.
I got profits.
Everything that I could find was in lira, which like don't exist anymore, and I was like, just I don't
Oh.
even know what the conversion rate would be.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, the internet. I wrote the internet told me it made 2.9 million in the box office.
that feels fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I'd believe that.
It did good in the
Good,
box
yeah.
office. And that's all I got. So
Good, period.
so how the fuck did Suspiria come to be? The script, to my surprise, and I don't know if you know this, was partially based on a true story, or based on true events, I should say.
I did not know this.
So Daria shared with Dario
Ah,
a story
so
about her
cute.
grandmother had told her about how she fled a music academy when she was young, because she thought the place was being run by witches. So like truly direct inspiration. And then on top of that, Daria also had a dream that she'd written into the finale. In her dream, she came into contact with an invisible witch with a panther in the room with her, and the panther exploded all of a sudden in her dream. And so we see a representation of that on film. I didn't catch it because there was so much going on. I'm assuming it's when all the stuff's popping at the end, there's like a little porcelain panther that explodes. Do you know?
I saw that.
Oh yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't
So
know that's what
that
that
was a dream that she had,
was.
and she put that into the finale. So oh my god, I love that. That's like a
Oh,
perfect
fuck
match,
yeah.
considering what you were just talking
I
about.
love
Yeah.
this.
So yeah, dreams are great inspiration
That's
for a story.
so cool.
Yeah. So I didn't realize that was like kind of the seed on top of a bunch of other stuff. So
Oh my God,
also,
that's just like a
oh no,
a quick little dark family history tidbit.
Oh no. You have so many of those. I love it.
One of the things that I wrote down while watching Deep Red, I was like, of course I would like this movie because I too have an axe murder mommy in the family.
I'm sorry. What? Lobotomist? Lobotomy? I gave you a little tool the other day. It looked like a
You
lobotomy
did.
tool.
My great grandma was locked up in a Georgia insane asylum for chasing her children around the house with an axe.
Honestly,
So
at that time,
I
those are fucking-
can't blame her.
Yeah.
So
That's wild.
So watching Deep Red and Suspiria was like, yeah, it makes sense that I
Oh
would
my god, you relate.
Yeah.
I love these little facts that come out.
Anyway,
This is what I
continue.
live for.
Yeah.
I love
like-
when these spark something.
I have no idea if this is interesting to anybody but
It's going to
you,
be
Al,
interesting
but-
to everybody, I can guarantee you. That is wild.
Axe fact.
Yeah. Killer family fact.
Yeah.
Killer fact, bro.
Killer family fact. Yeah. Destined to be a horror director.
Well, if you want to add something cool on top of it to
Yeah.
take your dreams and,
Yeah.
and family history, Dario Argento took acid, and that's how he figured out the structure of this film. Which
Oh my
makes
God, that makes so much sense.
So just add those layers together, and you'll get an Argento film, Siena. Guaranteed success. Classic.
This
I have no further
we're not
details
gonna
on
talk about how similar this sounds to my
Yeah.
first movie. We're just not going to talk about it. It's fine.
it. So on a lighter note, we'll go into some other inspiration for this film, which I found really, really fun. Call me a Disney adult, go for it. I used to have a pass when I lived in California and go all the time, but they drew inspiration from fairy tales like Pinocchio,
Yes.
Alice in Wonderland, and Bluebeard, which I'm not as familiar
Oh, I
with.
love Bluebeard. It's so
Oh,
creepy.
Yeah, have not seen. So while Dario was, he was also inspired heavily by the, I think 1937 Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs
Oh,
from
yeah,
Disney. He even had the
makes sense.
cinematographer Luciano watch
Luciano.
it. Luciano. I know I wanted to do it so bad. I was like, that feels
Do it.
too much. Luciano. And so they watched like those films together, which I think is like so contrasting to
Just picturing Dario Argento sitting down with a cinematographer and watching the animated Snow White.
I
is
mean,
so
it's kind of like
cute.
that forest scene is still terrifying.
Yeah,
So one of the things
absolutely.
I put in here is again, if you've gone to Disney, the ride of Snow White is like terrifying. I think they fixed some of it to be a little bit later lately. But there is a Disney animator and artist, Mary Blair. I'm not sure if you're familiar with. They don't cite her.
Okay.
I do have some photos, so I'll scroll down.
Ooh.
I was fortunate enough to in California see an exhibit of her works. So she was the inspiration for a lot of the concept art for a lot of Disney films, and just like an Imagineer that kind of inspired a lot of stuff. Her art, so I feel like that.
Oh my
I'll
god,
show
it's
this.
so Suspiria.
So it's very much like the inside. So they don't reference her or her stuff, but even
But you can tell
the forest scene when she's running with all the lighting that was on the trees. And we'll put images up and stuff. But Mary Blair, Alice in Wonderland, and then she did the concept art for It's a Small World. So you can very much see. So again, they didn't credit her, but I'm like, they had to have looked at her work.
I am
Had
so
to have.
delighted, Al. This is so up my alley.
I'm like, give me those Disney facts, baby, and I got us covered. I could talk about Disney all day. So that's kind of where they pulled inspiration from, which leads us to the color scheme of this film, which is so juicy and bright and
I like
opposite of what you think of when you think of a horror film, which I think is really cool.
I have joked before that like a lot of my favorite horror films are films that it feels like you can drink, and this to me is like like one of the most drinkable films. You know what I mean?
Like that. Yeah.
It's just dripping color and light in a way that it just feels like.
Well, even the opening with that ceiling shot, I feel like is one of the most notorious shots, which I love when like films like this that are so known for things, and it's just like the opening scene is really like the thing that everybody knows. It's just like, oh, buckle up. So this
it really starts at a 10.
It starts
for sure.
It starts at a 10. It gets you in.
Yeah.
So the internet, I kind of like did a deep dive on the colors and stuff. So the internet kind of like on the surface has you believe that this was shot on a outdated like Technicolor stock, which is not true. Even though most articles do say that. The film was actually made. No film after the 50s was made with that stock. So whatever you read, that is not true. The film was actually shot on a normal Eastman color Kodak stock, and then printed using the 3-strip Technicolor process, what they used with one of 3 remaining of those machines left in the world at the time. So that's where that comes from. And I think people get confused at this because this is like a very like fun fact for people. I figured you'd like this. Is because in the 25th anniversary DVD featurette, you can see Luciano. He's doing like a little diagram showing the 3-strip camera and then the process of the printing. So people kind of smashed those 2 facts together.
Makes sense.
But it was just regular. But how they got those juicy, dripping, delicious, drinkable colors. So you'll see a lot of the primary colors. I think that's very like Disney too. These very like bright things that they were going
very
after.
Childlike.
Yeah, very expressionistic. We have like the reds, the blues, the greens are really, really, really fucking bright in this.
This is like one of the iconic bisexual lighting movies for sure.
Oh my god! Yeah. Again, the forest in the beginning running, which we'll get to the bisexual lighting.
Very bisexual to
say
in general.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Intentionally so.
Yes.
So they did this, and it's a fun. So instead of using traditional gel filters for the lighting, they would use brightly colored velour, tissue paper, and kind of like mirrors and play with stuff in order to achieve these very like nightmarish dreamlike colors. So I love that they played on the back end to give this surrealist surrealist maybe isn't the best word, but I thought you would love that they kind of like manipulated
I'm trying not to
these colors
into light, but like
yeah, it kind of creates this like supernatural, again, it feels like nightmare fuel, like you feel like you're in a nightmare.
And also that's like so cheap. Tissue paper,
so cheap.
I had no
just
idea.
Play with the things that you have. I mean, you could even take like so much as like, things that don't melt, obviously, but like just you could just take the materials that aren't gonna melt over over a light. Be safe. And like just color things.
Fascinating.
Yeah. So that's why I think we get kind of this offness.
Yeah, because there is a quality to the kind of colored light in this film that is just different.
It's just different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it is intense, but it's intense in like a an off way.
Yeah.
I had no idea that's how they achieved that.
So they did that. Him and the DP kind of worked together to control those colors for the specific themes. Obviously causing like what did they say? A cutout cartoon effect is what they quoted it, which is so.
Yes.
It is like a coloring book.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Or like
Yeah.
a storybook.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which goes back to the Disney. So,
Yeah.
and I wrote, this is all great because Suspiria was literally designed to resemble an acid trip, and it's partly why
Mhm.
Argento wanted to film it in Germany to accent all the expressionistic fairy tale aspects of
makes sense.
the architecture there.
Mm.
Which again, it's all of this is just like one big,
Yeah.
like again the full. It's just fullness
just-
of like
yep.
layers of on
Yep.
top to create this
Mhm.
really, if anything,
Layers of tissue paper.
yeah. Just the visuals of this alone blow my mind. That staircase in some scenes, it's just so long, and the ceiling, it just feels very. We were talking about like stage play.
Mhm.
It unfolds like a play.
Yeah, the whole movie kind of has that sort of a theatrical feeling to it. And it
It's so good.
also, talking about like German expressionism,
Mhm.
it's super clear watching this how much it's influenced by things like The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari.
Oh yeah,
That like
yeah.
German
I gotta
expressionist
revisit that.
silent film.
Yeah,
Ugh.
yeah.
One day I'll make us tackle that. I don't think we're
should.
ready for
Yeah, we
like
gotta-
silent horror yet. I'll work y'all up to it.
We'll get
but
some.
yeah.
Yeah.
But it is a horror movie. But yeah, those kind of like cut out
Mhm.
seeing 3-dimensional people moving on like 2-dimensional sets
Yeah.
almost type
Yeah.
of feeling. Yeah.
It's so good. I think that's what makes this film. Again, if you're kind of dipping your toe, this
Mhm.
is just
This
the
is
perfect for.
this is what to
just-
dip into.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a little quote from an article I found interesting. I have to scroll where I got it from. It's down in my source notes. So if anyone wants to know, I got it. Just not right now. So the horror film Suspiria is stylistically rooted in German expressionism of the 1920s, but the 1970s found this genre in transition. Smash Hollywood hits such as The Exorcist, which we talked about,
Mhm.
Jaws, Carrie, and The Omen not only offered graphic shocks, but transformed or completely shed the genre's traditional trappings of ghouls, ghosts, and goblins. Instead, the characters and situations became somewhat familiar, the setting were contemporary and even homey, and the film's largely naturalistic cinematography firmly grounded it, the fantastic in reality. So I thought this was just like a interesting parallel of 70s films and kind of then putting this one right in the middle
This
of that.
just reminded me that something I forgot to mention in my film theory rant corner, but
Yeah.
like one of the things that interested me about that quote from Argento about Deep Red,
Yeah.
about how he tried to use weapons and kill like kinds of kills
you're familiar with. Mhm.
is that it also in both of these movies all the weapons are things that are very like feminine or like associated with like the household and like keeping the household like clean and maintained. Like, you know, in Deep Red you get like hit by the hearth literally as
That's
his,
why
like,
the
head
gun
is-
felt so jarring in that too.
Yeah,
you
because
know?
it feels out of
Yeah.
place.
Yeah.
Because everything else is like hot water,
Yeah.
furniture,
Yeah.
fireplace. Like, yeah.
It was oh, I forgot to mention too, even the last kill in that with the jewelry and that was like
Oh,
exactly what they do in a Final
genius.
Destination movie. Which that's why I'm like I felt like that movie was like very like Final Destination in essence. Deep Red. I'm like, I kind of see weird. So I want you to watch. We'll
we
get
have to watch
it.
Final
Yeah.
Destination. Yeah.
But yeah, I just thought that was interesting because you know here are all these great classic films that we're getting,
Yeah.
and then this is kind of put in there, and it's just like so different than the trajectory we were kind of like moving into.
And like took the genre in such a different direction. Like Suspiria is a reference point for so many things that follow.
Yeah. So I realized I kind of have this note in here that I feel like I could move later, but one of the changes that they made in this is originally they were going to have the cast be young girls, so it was going to be like 12-year-olds is what they originally, which oh my gosh, I kind of wish they did that,
That
but
would
the
be so
studios
creepy.
were like, we
can't.
absolutely not
That's
do
just
this.
the liability alone is
They
just
were
a
like,
nightmare.
the producers were like, given the subject matter of like all this violence, they feared the film would be banned because of that.
Yeah.
And so they're like, let's just bump these girls up to like college age.
That's fair.
But man, what a wild, and again, kind of contrasting like with horror, you know, look at how
Mhm.
extreme Exorcist feels because we have this young girl as the
Yes.
focal point
Yeah, it's
of the
true.
story. So
Oh,
I can't
that's so
imagine
funny.
if it would have been like that, but I felt like it would be really, really cool.
Oh, I
So
love that.
um oh, I was curious, and then going off of kind of before we move into music and stuff, I was
Mhm.
curious if you had a favorite shot in this film because I definitely now have one, and it's
Oh,
not the opening.
man. Oh, man, a favorite
Or is
shot?
there anything that kind of struck you?
I will well, I'm curious to hear if you have the same favorite kill that I do, because it's not
Oh.
necessarily my favorite shot,
Oh,
but,
what's your favorite kill?
uh,
Even
the
better.
the razor wire pit.
Oh, I have facts about
Oh,
that. Oh,
oh,
we might jump ahead to
oh,
that.
because
Okay.
that just
Oh, I have
it gets
facts that
me
will.
every time. I feel
Okay,
like I can feel it so viscerally. That's the
we're
one when I
skipping
was
then.
telling you, like,
Yeah.
there's one kill in this
You were
movie
gonna
that is,
see if
like,
that
the
I picked
most
up.
creative
It's
thing.
really cool.
It's
It
well,
reminds me of the razor pit in Saw.
which I haven't seen. So, but I bet you
Or the needle
that's
pit. Sorry, not razor. There might be a razor one too, but there's a needle pit in Saw,
I bet you it's
and she has
inspired.
to dig around in it,
Ugh,
and it's
ugh,
needles, and it gets me. It's one
ugh.
of the most brutal.
Well,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it because of the timing where it's like she's just climbed through this window and you feel like she's finally made it to safety and she steps down and it's just like, oh, whoop.
Yeah.
It's so
Yeah.
brutal. It scares me every time. And this time watching it, I was like, it's like she's caught in a spider web.
So,
Yeah.
the actress, so I looked it up and I was kind of given like falsified information about it. They said it wasn't real wire and like there was just like rubber wire or
Uh-huh.
whatever in there. So apparently it was real wire. It was real barbed wire, but they took like the barbs off. So she was getting like
That'll still
pinched.
cut you.
She was getting like pinched a lot during it. I'm gonna get a
Oh
quote
my
from her. I think she said it was
God.
like one of the most oh yeah, so she says, I can remember when we were done. I went home. I looked like I had been bitten by 1,000 ants.
Oh
I'll
my
never
God.
forget that scene, but luckily they got it in like one
Oh,
shot.
thank God.
But I thought it
Oh,
was like, I don't know, real
I
wire?
would never in a million years have
When I
thought
read
that.
rubber, but I found it in a different article and it was like, no, it was
Oh,
real.
fuck. We've got to put a clip
So
of that.
she is
We have
actually in
to.
pain. Yeah.
Oh my God. This is our Texas Chainsaw Massacre period
I know, I was like
fact
the
of the episode.
strings.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna jump back up to talk about the Goblin music really quickly. We're not
Yes.
gonna spend too much time on it. But this score was actually composed before the movie was even shot, which I thought was really
Oh, I
fascinating.
love
And I
that.
think it's such a fun thing to watch and know that because I'm like, you know, with these dreamlike images and having the script and then having this score done, I feel like the music must have led so much of this, you
Oh, that's
know?
the few times when directors are able to do that, I think it really helps to create a unified tone.
Yes. Yes, yes,
Um,
yes.
and like everyone here is over the top, they're all over the top in the same way. It very
Yes.
much feels like every actor is part of the same movie. And I
Yes.
bet that contributed to it.
And also, he would blast the score
Yes.
on set. Because again, the audio was everything was like they barely
The audio,
had any.
you don't really have to record.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
I think they record like a couple of hours at
Yeah.
most in the 4 months. And so he would blast the music every day for the cat. So I'm like, that must have been like awful and also the best
And
because his
also so
music is like,
inspiring,
and
yeah.
also so inspiring. And
well-
then I think Jessica Harper said too, they were like because they weren't shooting with audio, they were like working on sets next door. And she was like, it was so weird to like be acting and hear just like a hammer like drilling next door and then Goblin
That's gotta be
music.
so disorienting.
Yeah, which I think
it
helps.
Yeah, it adds to it. Well, and it's funny, just speaking of like inspiring Goblin music, the title track of the Suspiria soundtrack is one of the things that I picked out to send to Theo when he was composing
funny.
our theme song. So
Oh.
and
Oh,
listening
yeah,
back
you
to it
did.
now, I
You
was
hear
like
it?
we have the like da 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 da
Yeah.
da da da.
Yeah, we did that and the new Chucky TV show are like our two inspirations for that. So I hope you all
Yeah.
hear that when
'Cause,
you
like,
listen to our end theme.
hearing it this time, I was like, oh my God, I can hear where he picked up
Yep.
on
Yeah,
this. For
yeah.
that.
He
The like da
Theo
da
Schaefer,
da
man.
da
If
da
you
da
need
da.
something
Yeah.
done,
Go to Theo.
he nailed it.
We love you.
Again, just being aware of time and stuff. I thought it was kind of fun with the Goblin music. They one of the band members kind of did the weird whispering noises, which I attribute to sounding like gremlins from the Gremlin movies.
Yeah, they're like,
Yeah. So these two soundtracks are so vastly different, but offer so much cool stuff. I like this one just because it was like extra weird. They had weird sound effects and like glass breaking, and it was very much like noises.
I was literally dancing along the entire time to both of these
It's
movies.
so good.
Like anytime a kill would start, I'd be like, oh hell yeah, here we go. Like,
it's so good. For sake of time, I have a tiny film theory rant corner, tiny desk film theory rant corner. It's very small. I had two. One of them I'll let you all kind of dive into.
I love this.
Maybe we'll put up our notes for this one.
Yeah.
But I am going to talk
20
about.
Feels like a good time to
give our notes.
Yeah.
Carol motherfucking Clover.
Oh.
Of Men, Women,
truly my
Chainsaws,
birthday.
Gender in the Modern Horror Film. So she talks about this setting of a terrible place, which I love, which is in essence is something that kind of feels very comforting, very home, very familiar, like a dance academy for your bedroom. So a lot of horror films kind of take this idea of a terrible place, which is again this very like comfy place that then over time kind of turns into your worst nightmare. And I think it's so interesting. So many films do that.
Yeah, and
so many horror films.
I was thinking about both of these as opposed to Texas Chainsaw, where it's like all of these are like very place-centric horror, but Texas Chainsaw, it's all about like the horror of
there is no comfort
that
space.
It's like no matter where you go, it's the wrong place.
Right. Yeah, this is kind of a different.
Yeah, here it feels like the horror. It's like the deeper you go inside the building, the more horrifying. And that to me again feels like a very feminine thing. Yeah.
So on that, we keep talking about how this is kind of like a queer film and whatever. So Dario Argento is like, it is. It's a lesbian film. Not only does it have an all-female cast, he says it's true. Almost everyone is female in Suspiria. All the heroes and villains are women, and even few of the men are either blind, mute, or useless, which I fucking love. And Dario also said it wasn't primarily interested in the theme of motherhood, but rather in women's lives, which we talked about. In fact, if you want to give a deeper reading of the film, it could be seen as a vaguely lesbian story, where lesbianism has a certain importance, or more precisely, where the relationships between women are sometimes of a lesbian nature and are characterized by power struggles. There aren't any male characters to speak of in the film, and the power relationships are kind of within the women. So I love. Sorry, my. I have important calls.
Did someone forget to turn their phone off?
No, it's just I have everyone muted on my text.
Is it Sarah Jones?
It's Sid.
Hi, Sid.
Hi, Sid.
I love that. This makes me feel validated because I tried specifically not to look up too much about other people talking about this, or Argento himself talking about it, because I was just like, I don't know, it's coming up for me watching the films this time. I want to address it just from the film's perspective. So it's interesting hearing that it's something that he was consciously talking about.
Yeah, I thought it was, again, talking about Polanski, talking about Argento, they do capture the female experience in a really
There's like a real curiosity about like female interiority.
You know what I think it is too? And maybe this is just me. There's some people that are just really good human character studies, and it doesn't matter gender or life experience. It's people that are really interested in like human behavior, human interactions. And I think that's something in film school, being like, I spent some time, my major was more in production design, I realized, but I did a lot of directing. I kind of started there, realized I'm very much a visual person. But character study, those are the films that always got to me, like especially like in the indie era, when people were like, those films are so slow, and I'm like, no, but they're like human character studies. There's like even Taika Waititi, like Eagle versus Shark, I like loved that style, and that was like his first feature. But even through a director like that does a lot of bigger things now, he's so good at capturing humans, and interactions and humanity in them. And in the same way, I think, there's whatever binary you are and relate to, like, you can just capture human experience. 'Cause absolutely. I think observers, so but I love that people didn't just call this a queer story, that he
He
himself
did,
is like, yeah, it's a lesbian film.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
So all that lesbian, bisexual lighting, there you go.
There's a reason for it. Well, and like also like again casting a woman to play a queer man in Deep Red, like he's
Blows my mind that is
in 75.
so great.
In 75 Italy.
Yeah.
That this man was ahead of his time.
Yeah.
Is ahead of his
Absolutely.
time. He's still alive, but
I was like, he dead?
no, not dead. Not dead yet.
So critics' response, this has a lower rating than Deep Red does. So it's
Fascinating.
65% on Rotten Tomatoes.
What?
6.7 out of 10 on IMDb. And
Excuse me.
it's because when it first came out, it's become more of a classic now than it was.
That makes sense. So it's
but
still got some old reviews.
Yeah,
tearing the score down.
But audiences loved it at its release. So audiences were super scared by it. Obviously, it's like the most it's considered in Entertainment Weekly's magazine like the 18th scariest movie of all time.
It's a very scary film.
It's still considered one of the most influential horror films that's ever been released, and especially with the colors and the tones and everything. But yeah, critics were not a fan at the time.
What were some of the things that I
have a quote from, where's my boy?
Is it Ebert? Do we got an Ebert?
No, I had a New
I feel
York
like he'd
Times.
like
Oh,
it.
I had a John Simon of New York Times. He said, "It is a horror movie that is a horror of a movie."
Oh my god.
Where no one or nothing makes sense, not one plot element, psychological reaction, minor character, piece of dialogue, or ambiance. Just didn't get it.
Just hates everything.
Just hated the whole thing. Hated.
Wow.
Which I find funny because, again, I feel like he points out all the things that I'm
that
like,
we love.
It does have those things, but just they're not for you.
Yeah.
So
again, this is part of what I'm saying. Like, I feel like people come to it expecting something like hard and angular and like sharp.
It's just, it feels like, I would just say go into both. These feel like just nightmare. Or
They're
this one
nightmarish,
specifically feels like a nightmare.
It's very nightmarish.
Just this is like when you wake up from a dream, you're like, wow, that was fucking wild.
It's I can't remember if he's talked a whole lot about it, but it feels very clear to me that he's a big inspiration for Lynch. So like if you're into David Lynch movies, you'll probably like Suspiria.
Oh yeah, that's a great actually way to put that. Yeah. So just a last couple quotes before Argento said when people came out of the theater, they came running out, screaming, telling people in the queue, don't go in, it's the witches, which just apparently made everyone want to get in line for this movie.
And this wasn't like a gimmick. This was like actual audience reaction.
Yes.
So
cute. Not a gimmick that I found online.
Wow.
Or he's just hyping himself up.
Who knows?
And then a note to leave us on, he said something about Suspiria's success that I really enjoyed. He said, the success of the film is a strange accident you can't control. So I never think about the success of my films. I only think about the result. And I was satisfied with Suspiria, satisfied with the music, the color, the acting. I wouldn't change anything about it. It's a perfect product of its time.
Oh, I love that.
And I just, again, he seems like a really cool guy who just is, the contrast of these two films. I haven't seen his other work, so I can't speak on them, but he's just happy making the things he wants to make.
That reminds me, there's one quote that I didn't share from him, but that I think we do have time for.
Yeah.
I'd been like, I'll save this just in case. Let me see if I can find it. It's
so hard to
stall for me.
No, I know it's so hard to like scroll in our notes. Like if anyone watches, I have an iPad, Siena. I don't know how it reads off of a phone. My eyeballs cannot do that. But yeah, to scroll back up is very hard.
We're working hard for you guys.
Yeah.
I found it. So for Deep Red, I only found one quote from Argento about the shooting process, but just like as a director, it really like warmed my heart, and so I wanted to share it.
He said, we're I need a positive note. This one.
Yeah. So he said, as I was filming it, I knew exactly what I wanted. I was very relaxed, not stressed at all. The story is beautiful. I wrote it effortlessly in a couple of days. Which, like, I'm sorry, you wrote 500 pages in a couple of days, man.
Right.
Okay. It was miraculous. You just need to watch a movie to know how the director was feeling at the moment he was making it, which I love that. And I also think that to me is another big part of A, why I don't think this is camp, and B, why I love his movies so much is because you can just tell how much joy he has for the work he's making.
Yeah. Clearly there's a lot of thought that goes in the two of these films, and Yeah, I don't necessarily. I can get how it feels campy, but I feel like when you're dealing with like expressionistic and
Mhm.
these kind of, I mean, they're bonkers
They're
plots. Sorry,
bonkers,
like they're
yeah.
intentionally bonkers. I
Yeah,
think
it's
to a
not
point. Like the whole there's like a whole joke if you haven't seen in Deep Red about the engineer. No, I'm a pianist, and
Yeah.
it's so fucking funny,
It's
and it's
so
like
funny.
it's intentional. That
Yes.
is written on paper.
Yeah. Well, and that's a lot of what he cut out for the American version, which is the one that both of us watched. He cut out a lot of comic bits. So like
I
the
would've
Italian
loved more of
version
that.
is funnier. Yeah.
I don't know if I can get. Maybe one day in the background I could do that.
I don't think it's a background movie,
Yeah.
man. I feel
Well,
like
yeah, because I'd
that'd
have
be
to watch it. I made the joke the other day about like how I didn't know the fourth wall break in funny games was the whole time. The whole time.
the whole time.
So I have very much had to sit and pay attention to these. So. But yeah.
I am so honored that you went on this
Yeah.
Argento journey with
I'm
me.
really happy I did, actually.
Yeah.
It's fun doing this podcast because both of us actually, more often than not, have realized again we can like conceive this idea not realizing how much we are classic horror modern gore.
Yeah,
the two
and
of us.
how distinct the things that each of us watches on our own
Yeah,
are, and like
yeah.
it's fun exposing each
It
other.
is
To,
whether we
yeah.
like it for good or bad.
Yeah, yeah.
For-
Well, it's like it's the journey.
Yeah.
It's
Sure. That journey felt long for me yesterday.
I mean, it's an intense journey.
Yeah,
but-
don't do back-to-back Argentos. I would not recommend, but pick
I had a
one. I
great
would
time.
suggest if
Start
it's-
with Suspiria.
It's worth it just so you can have kind of a
Yeah.
basis of what it is.
Suspiria is also pretty short. It's like an
they're like an
hour
hour 30.
36.
Mhm.
Yeah.
fast,
And I
so.
think Deep Red, the American cut is like an hour 40,
Yeah, it wasn't
45.
much longer either.
So neither of them, even if they may feel long because there's like 10 twists a minute.
Yeah.
They're both like not a huge time investment. Real quick, what would you rate these for Letterboxd?
I would give Suspiria just for like cinematic things probably a 4.
Mm-hmm.
Deep Red I'd probably give like a 2.5.
Ooh,
But
interesting.
I liked it at the end.
Yeah.
I just
No, it's fair.
not my cup
It's
of
not
tea.
your cup of tea.
I did feel like certain shots felt very like film schooly versus like Suspiria. I felt like there was like really there's that shot of her Sarah turning off the light in the room when she hears the witches and it's green and she's like in the light bulb.
Yeah.
Brilliant, right? So I think for that reason I
totally
would
get it.
Yeah.
They're
so.
both 5s for me, but
Oh,
we
5s?
know
Okay.
that.
Sorry.
Just straight across 5s.
I'll give Deep Red a 3.
No. You can keep it at a 2.5.
Okay, Okay, let's go back now.
I'll take the average of our scores. I'll put it at
Siena's
like a
in charge of our
3.5 or
Letterboxd, so
something like that.
On
yeah.
that note, if you want to...
Oh, wait.
I'm going to take my mic.
What are we doing next
Oh
time?
my God, what are we doing next?
I'm so excited.
Maxine's coming out in
Maxine's
theaters.
coming out.
So we're going to cover X and Pearl, and so Siena finally gets to
Yeah.
watch Pearl.
And
I'm going
you
to cover
finally
it,
get
though.
to watch X.
I've watched X.
You've watched X? Oh, for some reason I thought you'd only
Yes.
seen...
No.
Oh,
Yeah. Huge fan.
Okay.
Very excited.
for a second from that reaction, I was like, did you not like X?
No, I loved them
Okay.
both.
Okay.
So
good.
excited.
Good.
Nia Goth is just chef's
Queen.
kiss. So yeah, it'll be a fun. So if
Modern day Shelley
it'll
Duvall.
that episode will come out the Monday after theatrical release. So I think it'll be really
Yeah.
fun. And then we're hoping to
We're
kind of see
gonna-
Maxine
Yeah,
together.
we're going to go take a little
Yeah.
Splice field
Yeah,
trip.
I think we're gonna take a Splice field trip. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
so that's
I'm
what we're
so
doing next. Thank you.
excited.
Almost forgot.
Yeah. So,
now
where
on
can
that
people
note,
follow us or find us.
We have a link tree everywhere. You can follow us on Splice and Splatter Pod on like all social media. If not that, it's at Splice Splatter. I think we're gonna start kicking out all full episodes on our YouTube at some point for free for everybody. Because we're gonna try creating more Patreon content. But you can find us on YouTube, watch our reactions and our faces and stuff, watch us reading our notes, getting my texts.
Yep. Say hi to Sid with us.
Yeah, or patreon.com/GRRM. And
I think that's it.
yeah, thanks for listening to Splice and Splatter.
The film podcast presented by the Jean Cocteau Cinema in Santa Fe, New Mexico.
Oh, I remember what we forgot. Thanks, Warren. Warren
Thanks,
Langford.
Travis.
Just sitting over like, are you forgetting
Are they
something?
going to remember me?
Travis Fowler.
And thank you, Theo. We
For the
love you.
awesome
Thank you for your
music.
Suspiria-ish soundtrack.
Yeah.
I love.
Okay. Now,
Yeah.
thanks for listening to Splice and Splatter.
The film podcast presented by the Jean Cocteau Cinema in Santa Fe, New Mexico.
It's modern gore.
And we'll be right back.